Good morning. My name is Reverend Leslie. I'm one of your ministers here at New Vision Center, and I'm so happy to be with you today and to share today's message. So we have a new annual theme, and you can see in the way we're doing our messaging and our marketing, like we're starting to center into this new theme, right? And the theme is the seeds of love. And there's something so delicately nurturing and gentle about that theme. Right? Can you feel that sense of sitting in a beautiful garden and being supported and held by the deep roots of an old growth tree? There's a kindness to it, like a kindness to self. And I just keep thinking about how gardening is this spectacularly lovely metaphor for life. And all year long, we're going to be digging into different see what I did there? We're going to be exploring different aspects of how gardening and the garden and the growing process is so much about what we do through life and as life. And it's a lovely metaphor to think of the plant, and we'll talk about that, the way the plant grows and the creative process. But even more than that, I think that there's something really juicy about the idea of us, as each one of us, as the sacred gardeners. So I had asked Bobby to use the song, "I Am the Place Where God Lives," moves and breathes and has its being. I am the place where God shows up. Because God shows up no matter what. Spirit's going to show up. Things are going to grow. But the gardener makes choices. The gardener crafts something specific. And if we don't say yes to being part of that co-creation process, then the growth is somewhat random. And we don't tend to show up in a place like this, like New Vision Center, if we're good with just whatever. We tend to have an opinion about how that gardener's path is going to lay itself out and what plants are going to show up in our life. But in order to do that, we have to say yes to being the gardener. So are you with me for this exploration? Yes. Fantastic. So there are many kinds of gardens, right? I mean literally infinite kinds of gardens. And the best thing about them is that they're all right. So here are a few different kinds. We have a lovely meandering English wildflower garden. We have one of those fantastic sculpted hedge gardens. My little self-controlling personality tends to want to try to control things to look like that and then get distracted and forget to prune the hedge, and then it just looks like something else. We have a wonderful Zen garden that's all built on harmony and flow. And for as many different kinds of gardens as we can think of, there are even more kinds of gardens. And every one of these is tended with loving care. Those plants were chosen. The way they're sculpted was chosen and acted upon by somebody who loved that garden. Somebody is taking care of every little twig, every little branch, every little water feature. The little baby koi that are growing up in that pond are cared for. And we know this because we know what it looks like when a patch of earth is not cared for. It looks something more like this. Life will happen. Life will happen. There's no stopping it. But if we want it to look a specific way, if we want it to be cared for, if we want it to be organized, then somebody has to do the gardening. And that's us. That's us. We talk about soil, seed, soil, plant all of the time in Science of Mind. We call it the creative process, and you've probably seen this chart, though I added decorations. Because of course I did. So this is the Science of Mind symbol, minus all the extra decorations. And if you've taken any of our foundational classes, you've seen this symbol. In addition to this beautiful drape has the symbol. Many of us have jewelry that feature the symbol, or any of Ernest Holmes' books have this symbol. And what it represents is the creative process. Now, sometimes when we say creative process, people get in their mind like the process to make a painting. Well, that too. that too. The process to make a beautiful drawing, sure, or to write a song or to perform it. But really what we're talking about is how we go from the concept, the idea of something that we might think should be in the world, all the way through to bringing it forth into manifest reality, whether that's a relationship, a job, an action we want to enact. Karen and I are trying to plan a time to go get tattoos. We have an idea. We're going to do it. So how do we take this thought that is the first step of every single thing we ever do and ever will do in our lives and take it all the way through to an effect, a result, a thing we can see in the world? Well, first we have the thought, which is our seed. And it starts up at the very top of this symbol here because the top of the symbol is the place of the ideal. It's the place, all of it is divine, but it's the place of pure divine idea. And our thoughts, through the one mind that connects with divine mind, is that idea. So that's our seed. And then we plant it into the soil of the law, meaning the law of creative action, the creative medium, which is also the place of our unconscious awareness. And you may notice in that soil there are some little stars, little different sizes, little different colors of stars. Those are the things that are floating around in our subconscious. And some of them are amazing. Some of them are thoughts like, I am infinitely powerful because the divine supports every single one of my ideas. And I am a yes for the most powerful, beautiful life ever. Anybody got that one in there? Yeah, we've been working on it, right? And then some of them are, everything I do sucks. Anybody got that one in there? Yeah, sometimes, right? Or we think we've rooted it out and then, it pops back up. Those darn things can hide in the dirt sometimes and then they creep up on us. Some of them are things that we've intentionally learned, like there's always more than enough and there is always more than enough to share. We've been working on that, right? And then sometimes the voice of our grandpa pops up in the back of our mind going, "Does you think money grows on trees?" All of that and so much more is hanging out in that soil, in that middle section where we're planting our seed. So we plant our seed in this soil, and just like any garden, you plant it in a rich, fertilized soil with all of the nutrients that a thought needs to grow. And what does it do? It grows into this beautiful, healthy plant that is exactly what we expected. But if we plant it into rocky, weak soil that doesn't have the right amount of potassium and the magnesium is all wrong and it doesn't have enough CO2, then what do we get? Spindly, sad little plants with like yellow on the edges. And that's if we get a plant at all. So what does this tell us? It tells us if we have a thought, if we have an idea, and we put it into the law, we put it into our consciousness, and then later we look at that and I said I want a loving, supportive husband who cares for me and is kind and creative, and I got this dude who doesn't want to work and thinks I'm ugly. How did that happen? Not this dude. He's good. How does that happen? We plant the thought into our soil, but like we say all the time, the universe doesn't give us what we want. It gives us what we are. It gives us a reflection of our thought through the filter of everything that's in our subconscious, everything that's floating around in there. So like any good gardener, when we go into our garden and we see some beautiful, healthy plants, and then some kind of sketchy ones, and then some weeds, which are the outpicturing of those less positive thoughts that are hanging out in our subconscious, what do? We tend the garden. The weak plants, we get right down to them. I mean, you can't solve a problem for a plant from across the field. You get right down to them and you look right at the leaves and right at the way the roots are entering the soil. And then if you're me, then you get out your phone and you Google what makes this weird spot show up on the leaf of this kind of plant. If you're Bobby, you have the books. He's got like 57 encyclopedias of what makes plants do what. But I'm a tech girl. I've got my phone. And it's not that hard to find it, right? Oh, this is a sign that I'm overwatering or underwatering. Oh, this is a sign that this plant would do better in a different part of the garden where it got a different amount of sunshine. Oh, this is a sign that I forgot this plant was out here at all and haven't paid any attention to it for a year. Surely no one in this room has ever had a thought, an intention, set it into motion, and then got completely sidetracked and never looked at it again. I thought so. See, you're all much better than I am. I have done this. I have done this. I can't tell you how many times I've said, I'm going to write a book. And then like a year later, somebody's like, how's that book? Like, oh yeah. Oh, I'm still going to write that book. But interestingly, it did not write itself in the interim. It just doesn't tend to do that. If the seed is the thought and the soil is our subconscious and we grow the plant that directly reflects how we have cared specifically for that subconscious layer, then it is our job when we find what's wrong with our plant, what's lacking in our plant, what we haven't provided for our plant, then what do? Well, we either deal with the fact that we're going to have a subpar plant, which is frankly an option. I mean, I think that all of us have looked at something and gone, good enough. It'll do. It'll do, pig. It'll do. We say that at our house all the time. But sometimes it's important, right? Sometimes it really matters. And in that case, we decide, okay, it's time to step up and be the gardener. I need to tend my soil to the point that it can support the plants that I intend to grow in my garden. Which means one of two things. It means we either need to add to or take away. We add to the things that are nourishing our plants. We add to positive thoughts. We add to our high intentions. We add to our affirmations, our practicing the presence, our recognizing the divine in our life, and teaming. And then we take away by rooting out methodically, bit by bit, day by day, micron by micron, subatomic particle by subatomic particle sometimes, those thoughts that are not what we intentionally choose for our life right now. We decide, I am the sacred gardener. I claim this job. I own it. I am it. I am the sacred gardener. If we decide, and it is a choice, if we decide, I will be the sacred gardener of my life, our first task always is to center in on the vision for our garden. If you plant the seeds for that lovely tumbling English wildflower garden, and then get all shocked that you didn't grow the hedge garden, that is a failure of vision. It's what happens when we say, I just want to be happy. And then 6 months later we say, that meant more money. Did we tell the universe that meant more money? Did we act in that direction? We have to find the vision. We have to get clear on what we want, get intentional. As Reverend Karen has stood up here and said in the last couple of weeks, if I plant eggplant and I grow cucumbers, that is very confusing. That just does not happen. If I plant eggplant, I'm going to grow eggplant. If I plant summer squash, we're going to grow summer squash. We have to decide what we're going to plant. We have to get very, very clear on it. And the best way I know to get clear on that is by the different practices that are part of the larger spiritual practice of practicing the presence. These are methods like meditation, like visioning, like honing in the silence and then really allowing what comes through to become a focal point of our life. And then we carry that through practices like journaling and self-awareness and the releasing prayer process. We have all of these tools. And you know where they don't do us any good at all? In those cute little notebooks we make for each class, and then when the class is over, we close the binder and we put it on a shelf, and then we never open it again. That's just me, right? So we hone our vision, and then we own our vision, because it's not enough to catch the vision. We have to own it and claim it. We can't just plan it and then not tend it, because in that case, we either get no result or we get that tangled, empty field result. When I was growing up, I heard a lot the King James version of the phrase, faith without works is dead. Has anybody ever heard that? Faith without works is dead. And it means a lot of things. It speaks to intention, and it speaks to understanding your faith and deep faith. But more than anything, it speaks to taking action. And I really like the New International Version Bible version of that phrase, because I feel like it says it a little bit more clearly. It says, in the same way, faith by itself is not accompanied, or faith itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. So perhaps you've had the experience of having a beautiful thought, that fantastic idea, I'm going to write that book. And then you didn't do anything about it for a really long time. How's your book? It doesn't do itself. Life will happen. I bet you wrote things in the interim. You might have journaled. I bet you wrote down a couple of grocery lists. Books came to be in the world. Hundreds of thousands of them were published in the time between when you had that thought and the moment you just now realized, oh yeah, I never wrote that book. But was it your book? Did it contain the thoughts you knew would make a good book? It didn't. And there's something so precious and unique in each one of us that deserves to be captured in the medium of our choice, in the medium that is a natural call to us. But if we don't actually do it, it won't ever be done. In Science of Mind, we say everything starts with consciousness, and it does. Everything is centered in consciousness, and it is. Everything comes through consciousness, absolutely. But there comes a point where we treat spiritual mind treatment, prayer, meditation, we treat, and then we what? Move our feet. Because at a certain point, consciousness meets material, the rubber hits the road, and we go. We go. And if we don't go, the going don't get gone, done. I did not plan that. Sometimes extemporaneous works, sometimes it gets tangled. If we don't go, the going doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Other beautiful projects will be born into the world. Life will happen. But our calling won't be born into the world. And I call it a calling not softly. I don't mean there's a thing we want to do, and so I'll call it a calling, I'll call it a vocation. No. If it is brought into us from the inside by that divine impetus that is indwelling spirit, and it comes up through us, and it enters our brain, and it comes out of our mouth as this idea, I'm going to do this thing. Do you feel the energy there? That is God in us, giving direction. And then silly humans, oh, we're so silly sometimes. We go, who am I to think that I can? The enacted, empowered, embodied physicality of the divine and unique form, that's who. The sacred gardener, that's who. Called upon by the infinite forces of the universe. I mean, we say all the time, the entire universe is conspiring for my good. Ooh, and we love it, don't we? And we love evidence of it. It's so delightful to realize all of these things had to happen all over the planet for me to get this thing that I can utilize to do good in the world. But what if you are part of the universe conspiring for her good? What if the thing you're called to do is one of the things that's necessary for his greatest good to unfurl? We're being called by infinite forces. And we hear the call, and the thought comes forward. And there it is, as the seed that we plant in the soil. In a garden, we can't just plant it and walk away. We can't just plant it and just water it and walk away. We must weed out anything that gets in our way. Pull it out of the way. We can't just feel the truth and know the truth. We have to actively activate the truth, be the truth, walk the truth, share the truth. That is how we be the sacred gardeners in life. And the best part of it, just like that calling rose up to a seed, we don't have to do any of it alone. We are not the lone ranger gardener. We are co-creating with the infinite power of the universe to grow that garden. Life will happen, and it's happy to take direction with us. We can't control every single thing that happens in life, but we can impact it. We can help direct it. We can co-create with it. Ernest Holmes said, "When I go out and plant a garden, I walk away and leave it." He doesn't just live in the garden forevermore, bouncing from leaf to leaf, saying, "Please grow, please grow, please grow, please, 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 please." He eventually goes inside with Hazel and has a nice beverage and a cookie. When I go out and plant a garden, I walk away and I leave it, and I know that something is going to make it grow. The person who uses this principle most effectively is the one who most deeply inwardly convinced of a simplicity and an integrity to the universe, and that they are the one who can do it. There's a simplicity and an integrity to the universe that is inviting us to co-create with it, whatever it is that we are called to create. And it is the power that makes it happen, and we shape the dream. And it brings it forth, and it is good. It is so good. There's a power that is greater than we are, and we can use it. And it is using us every time we step forward, every time we take action, every time we be the sacred gardener. And so this is the invitation this week. We will be working on our sacred gardens, and we will probably be inspired to grow physical gardens as we talk about seeds all year long. And what we will do this week is to hone in on that vision, open up to the vision, and allow it to come through. And when it does, capture it. Capture it so that you can continue to work on it all year long. Are you with me? Beautiful, and so it is. And so let us take that into prayer. I invite the practitioners and ministers of religious science to take a stand with me in this prayer, as we simply recognize the good that is, the universal gardener, the grower of all things, affirming and knowing that it is present in and through and as each one of us, each beloved everywhere, that each of us are empowered and enlivened and inspired and uplifted by that which is the all good, that within us is implanted every needed attribute and thing to bring forth the callings upon our lives, that the entire universe is conspiring to support our growth and the growth of all good things. Know that the calling on each of our hearts as we entered this service is met with a healing energy, even as we speak this prayer, that all is well right where we are, and it is so very good. And with a grateful heart, I just accept it all as we say together, and so it is.